welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everybody. This is Evelyn Hershkowitz, Reader Services Librarian at the Syosset Public Library. This is the Turn the Page podcast, and today we're lucky enough to have with us Allison Winn Scotch, and we have spoken with Allison before because we all love her books here. They're rom-coms, which is what everybody needs right now, and I'm just going to say a little bit about Allison so you know who she is. Allison Winn Scotch is a New York Times bestselling author of 10 novels, including The Rewind, which I believe we spoke to you about. Cleo McDougall Regrets Nothing. I think I spoke to you on that one also. In 20 years and Time in My Life. She lives in Los Angeles with her family and their two rescue dogs, Hugo and Mr. Peanut. So Take Two, BIRDIE MAXWELL is her new book. Came out on March 5th. If you're interested, it is available on Overdrive in both ebook and audiobook. And it's also available in a print copy. So give us a call and we'll be happy to put it on hold for you. So let's welcome Allison. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody what Take Two, BIRDIE MAXWELL is about.
Sure. So you and I were discussing a little bit before we recorded. It's just intended to be a joyful rom-com in a time when I think we could all use a little joy. It is about America's sweetheart who gets canceled and who retreats home to her hometown and discovers an anonymous love letter from one of her exes and decides the way to win back America's adoration is to track down this ex and stage her own rom-com. So then things go awry.
Well, there are some of the characters in the book is her best friend, Elliot, her best friend, Mona, and Mona's brother, Elliot, who is also was her best friend growing up. I don't want to give too much away. So you tell me what I should say and what I should say.
So Elliot is award-winning journalist who has also encountered some professional problems of his own. So he slinks home as well. And Mona has an old RV. So they set out in the RV together so he can chronicle this in an attempt to save his career, and she can also save her career. So there are some, the rom-com tropes of sort of the forced proximity. They may or may not have had some old history together. So it's, I don't know, it's just fun. I loved writing Elliot. I loved writing Mona. Mona is Elliot's twin sister, and I loved writing Birdie. So it's, that sort of sets it up, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Is Birdie based on anyone you know?
No, I've been asked this. I think when I was writing her, so my grandmother's name was Birdie. And I just thought it was like such a distinctive name with such personality that I don't know, I loved it. But I do feel like when I was writing her, I sort of envisioned like 1990s, early 2000s, Julia Roberts, sort of this woman who was just the most famous actress in the world. And some people wanted to see her have a fall from grace. And, she had her own set of sort of ups and downs with public adoration. So that's I think who I had in my mind. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about this in my book launch because we were like, we're older, so we can't even tell you who the younger actresses are now. So it's Julia Roberts. Yeah.
I have I see pictures and I'm like, who's that? Who's that?
Exactly.
I spend so much time reading that I can't watch everything on Netflix and everything on Apple. I mean, there's just that, and also I think there's too much content out there.
So much content.
And it's anxiety. Like you put on the TV and you're like, okay, what do I watch? It's too much. So then I just shut it off and I go back to reading my rom-com. So then I'm happy.
I totally understand that. Yeah. Totally.
Right now, like I said, I'm reading like 85% rom-coms because this time I just need to be happy. I need to know that everything is going to work out.
I
And
mean, 100%. I think, rom-coms have had their heyday in the past few years, but I think now more than ever, just joyful books are, you turn on the news, life is very difficult. And so there is real value in losing yourself to however long you can read at night or during the day, and just this world where things, as you said, are going to be okay. So I'm thrilled to have written a book where I think it's just there for those purposes, like to entertain people and make them happy. So yeah.
so I saw that you were at Zibby's bookstore for
Yeah.
your launch. How did that go?
That was great. It's so funny. 10 books in, I mean, I think maybe I've always been this way a little bit, but I really hate asking people to show up for me. Like, it's probably a personality defect. I don't know. I just get uncomfortable in people like having to take time or energy or money out of their day. So I kept telling people, oh, it's a Tuesday. You don't have to show, it's totally fine. But it was packed and I didn't know everyone there, which was shocking. It was just really nice. I think, I mean, you've spoken to so many authors over the years. You do tend to start to think of it as it's a business. It's just a career like many other careers, but then people show up and think that what you do is extraordinary. And it's just a really nice reminder that in this job, which is quite autonomous and can be sort of isolating, that like there's a whole band of people out there rooting for you. So it was really nice.
That's great. Yeah, no, from what I see of the authors I have interviewed or just what I read on Instagram, there's so many of you that come together and help each other out. Like you each post other people's books when they on their pub dates. I mean, I think that's so nice. There's really, I mean, I don't look at it as competition.
I
Because
agree with
I could
you.
read your book and finish it in 3 days and then pick up their book and read it in 3 days. And
I
some books
totally
I
agree
read,
with
some
you.
books I listen to. There's no competition. Everybody loves, our patrons come in, they finish the book. What do they want next? It's not a competition. Everybody's out there writing their own style, writing their book, and there's a place for every one of you. So
I
it's so
totally
nice that
agree,
you help
Evelyn.
each
I
other.
mean, I I have been helped along the way by authors who are bigger than I am, and I have helped new writers for whom I have a career and a path that I can help bring them along. So I agree, particularly, I mean, like in this rom-com space, if you read, an Emily Henry book, you may enjoy my books.
Right.
So there is, it's like the domino effect. Once if you discover a genre that you love, the possibilities are endless. So we should all embrace that. So, and I do think for the most part, particularly female writers, like we really, almost every writer I know feels that way. I mean, I don't know if there are private professional jealousies. I'm not like a jealous person, so that's not my issue. But I think at least public facing, a lot of people are very supportive. So it's nice.
It is. It is. It's very nice. It really is. I just got off a webinar that I was watching through one of the publishers. And what they're doing is if you like this book, then you'll like this book, which is
Right.
great. They're matching books together so that like they had one book that I had already read, and they like, if you like that, you'll like an Emily Henry. So
Yeah.
they're doing that for you. So
Yes.
it's wonderful. It really is. Do you have an author
100%.
group that like you hang around with or?
I do. I do. Well, a lot of us came up together. So, we started, 15, 20 years ago. And so we've met along the way. I might have said this on your last podcast, but Laura Dave, whose book was stratospheric success.
Right. She got the Netflix series and
Yeah,
everything.
she's one of my best friends. And so
Oh, how
she
nice.
she always reads everything very early. We met right when our first books published. So like 20 years ago or whatever, however long, 18 years ago, whenever my first book came out, and hers as well.
Right. I've read some of her back books also. So
Yeah. So
before she hit it so big with this last one.
exactly. So she reads for me. I was just texting with Emily Giffen today. I
Oh,
mean, we all sort of I mean, we all know each other. LA has a very specific sort of writing it's a smaller group, although there actually are a lot of authors here, not novelists here. But yeah, I think that whether or not we see each other in person all the time, in terms of like quote unquote hanging out, to answer your
Right.
question, there are a lot of group chats, there are a lot of texts, so like Jen Lancaster, who was a huge memoir, Bitter is the New Black, and a whole, like, she just had me on her Substack. So it's just, and I've known her since, same with Karen Bosnack, who's written 3 books. I don't know, we just I think after a while in this career, you just settle into it and you're just like, yeah, of course, like, this is symbiotic. I'll help you, you'll help me. And it's a really nice thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not like, I don't like people who aren't like that. So I'm sure,
Yeah.
again, there are people out there, but they're just not in my orbit.
Okay. Did you always want to be an author?
No. In fact, my mom jokes, like, my brother was the really voracious reader, but my mom was a teacher. She always insisted that we read a lot. She would like send us vocab words when I was at camp.
Really?
Circles of like paragraphs, cut out from whatever.
For your SATs?
Yes, exactly. Which my daughter is taking this weekend.
Oh,
But no, I wanted to be something creative. Like when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a sportscaster, and then I wanted to be an actress. So sort of always in that world of, sportscasting is not necessarily like quote unquote creative, but like sort of public facing verbal, like verbosity or whatever the word would be. And then acting, I actually think is very similar to writing. But I don't actually have to be judged by like what I look like every day. So that's a nicer element of writing. So, but no, I graduated college and I started out in PR,
okay.
which was writing, but I just hated it. And I quit very quickly, took a job temping, and then started acting, and then eventually segued into writing.
That's good. Did it
Yeah.
was it hard for you to get your first book published?
Yes and no. So I wrote a totally different book that is not my debut, that did get me an agent, but did not get an offer from publishers. And then but I got nice feedback about my writing. It's just that the book wasn't working, and in hindsight it was, awful, as you often have to write many books, or you tackle many things before you know how to do it. So then I wrote another one, and that agent did not want to take it out because she didn't have confidence in it. So I fired her and found a new agent, and then we had a 4-way auction on it. So
Nice.
um
And the
so
first
yes,
book was, which was the first?
it was called The Department of Lost and Found. So yes, it was difficult, but also it wasn't, years and years. And I was lucky that I sort of had this innate belief in myself that it was going to work out. Firing that agent, I think, was the most pivotal thing that I've probably done in my career. Or else I just would have been writing things that she just kept telling me weren't good enough.
And from what I read, what you wrote in your author notes is that this book, in your acknowledgments, that this book was not an easy book to write. That you had
No.
4 drafts before. I want to know how authors do that.
Yeah.
It seems to me like such a waste of time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do you write 4 drafts? And I mean, you have the idea and everything. Like, how does that work? Like, how much time does that take you?
So this is the first book where I've had to ask for a little extra time. I normally write very quickly. Like once I have the idea, I can sort of just go out of the gate and start writing. But this book, I actually did not have the clear idea, which for me is just, it's like doomsday. So I knew, I wanted to write just a straight rom-com. But the concept just wasn't clear. So I was sort of figuring out as I was writing, and like she started out being like a romance writer who didn't believe in love, but she knew who sent her the letter. It just, I don't know, it just wasn't working. And so I guess I wrote my way towards figuring out what was working, which is a really inefficient way of writing a book. And I'm very grateful to my editor, who kept giving me time and feedback, and my agent as well, who was reading every draft. But I think this many books in, you just have a sense of what's working and what isn't. And I just knew, like, I knew I could write something better. I knew I was sort of bored. I knew like it's almost like a recipe where you're making a soup and it needs something, and sometimes you're going to serve something that just isn't very good, and then you're going to go back, so that's what it was. But yes, it was a massive amount of work, and you know yeah. But we got there, and I once I figured out who Birdie was, then it just became so much easier. But I was sort of writing a character who wasn't working, so therefore the book wasn't working.
Do you
So
outline, or you just fly by
I
the
don't outline, which I mean, I for sure should, but
Okay.
it's like an old dog, new tricks at this point. I am who I am, but I did some film work, and for that you outline, and I'm not like a planner, so I dread the outline. But once we had done that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. Like the outline is sort of arduous, but then you could just fill everything in. So I don't know. If I took better advice, I probably would. But you know, I'm working on book 11 right now.
Oh, great.
I'm not gonna change things at this point.
So no outline for book 11 either.
No outline for book 11.
Okay.
Although I'm about 2/3 of the way through. My agent called me yesterday. She said, how about if we do this? And it's like a major change. And I'm like, oh my God, if I have to rewrite this whole thing, I'm gonna be very upset.
So how long did it take you to do Birdie Maxwell?
Oh, I normally can write a draft in like 3 or 4 months. This definitely took, I don't know, 7, 8,
Wow.
because again, not because I couldn't get the words on the page, it's because the words on the page weren't working. So I really did have to start over like every 100 pages. And it was demoralizing, obviously, but
do you ever feel like giving up? Like,
oh my God, yes. Like after every book, I say to my husband, I'm retiring. Like I don't. So I have another 2 books due in my next contract. And then I'm like, you know what? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many ideas I'm expected to have for the rest of my life, but some books come easier than others, and then you feel delighted. So the one that I'm working on now is, until yesterday when my agent sort of threw a curveball, has been coming very easily. I'm really enjoying it. And so that is a totally different experience than when, you're pulling teeth to get words on the page. So I shouldn't say pulling teeth. Once I knew what I was writing with Birdie, it was fine. And it flew, but it just took a long time to get there. So yeah, it's an interesting moment in publishing. I think a lot of authors, yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen. And so it just feels a little tenuous. So I do think a lot of people often have, oh, maybe I should quit, but the creative brain often doesn't turn off. So every time I think that, eventually a new idea creeps in and I find myself writing it.
That's great. You wrote in your acknowledgments that some of your books have been opted for movies.
Yeah.
How's that going? Any word on those things?
Yeah, so the Rewind is at Netflix, and
Wow,
they're
that's fabulous. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about it. They had a script, they're working on revisions. They brought in an amazing writer who's a friend of mine to work on that revision. And then hopefully, I think we'll do an amazing job. Hopefully we get into production. So we'll see. I mean, Hollywood is so like, if book publishing is difficult, Hollywood is even more difficult, as I'm sure you know from speaking to people. So I always feel like, well, the only thing I can count on, like if it gets optioned, is they pay me for the option. So that's I sort of take like the lowest stakes possible. Okay, well, I know that it's in development. And then another one of my books, Between Me and You, I wrote a series with the same screenwriter for Kerry Washington's production team that we wrote as a podcast, and we're sort of trying to figure out if it's going, or we're not totally sure, but something's happening with that as well. So it's been nice to diversify as well, and sort of dip my toe into different
That's great.
review. Yeah,
Congratulations. I look
thank
forward to
you.
seeing it on the screen. That'll be fun.
Yeah, well, here's to hoping. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you write it any screenplays? Do you dip into that at all or?
So I did not write the rewind, which is fine. They changed it enough that I think it would have been difficult for me to sort of do that. But we did adapt between me and you together, my friend Pete and and I really liked it. It's a very different muscle. But again, just sort of in the vein of like, I enjoy changing things up creatively. Yeah. So, and they're just taking Birdie out now. I don't know if it's going to get set up somewhere, but I will probably see if I could possibly write it. But I live in LA and I have seen some friends. It's a lot of work, particularly a TV series. And I don't know if I want to work that hard. Like it's
Okay.
all it's all consuming, and writing a book is hard, but it's like the devil, So, I like working from home. I like not having to talk to a lot of people during the day. And if you're on set and you're involved, I don't know. I feel like you reach an age where you're just like, yeah, I know who I am. So, you know.
Yeah, after 10 books. And another thing I read is that article from AP News
Oh yeah.
you did. That was a really good article. I really
Oh,
enjoyed reading
well,
that.
she interviewed me, but thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
it
nice.
was nice. I also like that your love for Taylor Swift.
Huge Swiftie here, and I have a 17-year-old daughter. So we are deep into the Travis Taylor love affair, and I was lucky enough to be asked to write about it, and that article got some attention, and so that is why I think people ask me about it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I love her. I love her music. I love what she represents. I love that we're watching our own real life rom-com, getting back to
Mhm.
the rom-com.
Right, exactly.
It's just amazing.
Although the definition of rom-com is it has to have a happy ending.
They're gonna get married, Evelyn. We got
It has to have-
like
I don't
I don't know
know.
what we're gonna do if they break up, so we're just gonna manifest that.
It has to have that happy ending, and then we'll have a rom-com.
Exactly. But it's been a really nice thing. Like my daughter and I send each other TikToks. Like we talk. It's just been a really nice bonding thing. And I know that I'm not alone in that.
No, of
So
course not. Plenty of
yeah,
mothers and daughters have been going to
exactly. Exactly. So that it's been nice. We had a Super Bowl party with it was all girls. So, it's just been a nice thing.
That's great. And
Yeah.
another thing I saw is how the Washington Post did not give you a favorable review on your first book. But now this book, it's Take Two Birdie Maxwell is one of the 10 noteworthy books for March.
I know that was
That's Sweet Revenge.
shocking. I was shocked. Yeah, that my debut, the one that we talked about, got a D+. And I
Okay.
was like a newbie. And this was like it felt like a personal attack. Like I don't know where that came from, why they felt they had to do that, but they did. And it just shows you keep writing, you keep working, and one day the Washington Post will give you a really positive review.
Yeah, I know. And
So
you're in
yeah,
good company, right? Lots of
yeah,
other great books. Do you read
yeah.
all your reviews?
No, I've tried really hard for this book. Actually, I've read almost none other than the trade reviews that the publicity team
Mhm.
sends you. I feel like Goodreads has been very clear that people on there are posting just for readers. And I also feel like it can be a little toxic. So particularly now, I know some friends who have been sort of review bombed, and I just, for my mental health, I don't know what the benefit is of looking at that. So in the past, I definitely have. And again, I don't know what value it's added to my personal life. Like I loved the rewind. There are plenty of people who did not. And that can't change my relationship with the book.
Right.
So, it's tricky because as authors, we really want to stay engaged with readers. Like that's part of the experience now,
Mhm.
actually part of our job. But also, I don't want to be tagged in a mean review. Like that doesn't benefit me at all. So we're all trying to figure out what that means moving forward.
Right. Well, I
So,
have a review here from the Library Journal. I'm going to read.
oh,
Scotch's passionate and fast-paced story follows a roller coaster of ups and downs involving fame, friendship, and family. Will satisfy fans of classic rom-coms like Notting Hill, and I guess it's You've Got Mail. Somehow it cut it
yeah,
off,
you've
and
got me.
that's the Library Journal.
Yeah. And Notting Hill is, I think, one of my most favorite rom-coms. So that was,
Booklist also compared it to
yeah,
Notting Hill.
correct. Exactly. So that was a real highlight for me.
And then Publishers Weekly also said Scotch balances wit and introspection beautifully throughout, peeling back her character's emotional layers. Readers will have no trouble hopping aboard the Elliot and Birdie train.
Yeah, that was very nice
That's
as
also a
well.
nice review
Yeah,
also.
exactly. So those get sent to me. And
Right.
obviously, like I see some, and I always appreciate when people tag me in positive reviews because that's nice. But
Yeah, nobody should tag anybody in bad
oh
reviews.
my gosh, but of course they do. And
Right.
I always just assume that it's, I don't know, maybe somebody who doesn't understand the etiquette. But I also, maybe this is what's come with experience. Reading is so subjective, like anything. It
Right.
is not
Even the
gonna.
reviews that you read are so subjective.
Correct. Exactly. So, I have a set of friends whose book recommendations I really trust, like Laura Dave. If she tells me to read a book, I 100% will. We almost
Right.
always agree on what we like. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to like another recommendation from a different friend who likes other things. There's a very popular, I'm not going to say who this is because I actually really value their Instagram, but there is a book blogger or bookstagrammer who raves about books. I've read a bunch of them. I haven't liked any of them, but that doesn't take away the value of what they are saying. It's just not my
Right.
taste.
Well, right now, if you
So,
look at the New York Times, the top 3 or 4 books are all fantasy.
mhm.
And that's not my genre.
Right,
So,
exactly.
but obviously there's millions of other people. That's
Oh
their
my gosh,
genre.
romantasy, it's the
Mhm.
hot thing.
Yeah.
So,
So you know what? There's a pot for what is that? A pot for every kettle? And
yeah,
same thing
a
with
lid for
books.
every pot.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So
Pot-
that I
pot for
just
every
think, yeah.
pot.
But please, I totally understand. Like I could barely put string 2 words together on some days, but yeah, so the review thing is tricky, and I tried to treat this release a little bit like I would have treated ones, 15, 20 years ago, where social media wasn't really around.
Right.
I couldn't check my Amazon ranking or my Goodreads reviews. And we used to spend the day going around to bookstores signing stock. And that is much less so, obviously, with so many bookstore closures. But I like walked my dogs, I cleaned my house, I did things that I didn't require me checking in frantically because I can't do anything about it. So it was actually felt much calmer all day.
And then you
So,
went to Zibby's bookstore
and
and
then I went to Zibby's
it had
bookstore.
a
That's
full
literally,
crowd, which was
that's
very
right.
nice. Are you going
Yeah.
to any other bookstores?
No, not this time. And I should say, and I did that talk with Julie Clark, who is another friend of mine who has
Oh,
written The
her
Last
book.
Flight. And
I think it was her first book or her second book.
yeah, the Last Flight.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That was such a great
Unbelievable.
book. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, loved it. And Lies I Tell was great. And she has a new one that's going to be huge and I'm
Oh,
very excited
good.
about.
Okay. Yeah.
But just speaking of author friends, but no, I think post-COVID, it's been difficult to do these events. People just have not wanted to come out as much, which is fine. I don't, again, sort of contrasting what it used to be like. We used to fly, I used to do big book tours, but this was before people could post something and reach just as much of an audience as like the flight and the hotel and
Right.
all that. So yeah, so this is, maybe I'll do something in New York. I have friends and family there, but I'm content just sitting at home, not doing that. So as I said at the beginning, I get so uncomfortable asking people to show up for me. So
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. I
oh,
really
thank you for
enjoyed it.
having me again. It's so nice to
Yeah.
see you, and maybe I'll
And
be
I look
back.
forward to talking to you with
Ooh, we've had so many difficulties.
I
Gets
look
better.
yeah, I look forward to speaking with you again with the 11th book. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you. So Allison Winn Scotch, it's been a pleasure. Good luck. I hope the book
Thank you.
skyrockets and does so well.
Thank you again for having me.
Okay, thank you. So
Okay,
we're
good to
gonna
see you.
You
Oh,
good to
sorry?
see you. We're going to end this chapter of Turn the Page. Thank you so much. Have a
Perfect.
great day and enjoy the Oscars Sunday night. I'm sure in LA it's a big deal, huh?
Yeah, we'll be sitting on our couch watching them. So
Enjoy.
thank you. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Evelyn.
Take care. Bye-bye.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.